Hi guys, this is Amar and welcome to Amar Tech Stuff. So guys, in this video we are going to focus on a Cisco packet tracer lab, and in this lab we are going to see some basic switch related configuration. We are going to see how we can set the host name of the switch, uh, how we can set the MOTD, that is message of the day, banner for the switch, and some password related configuration for the switch. So what I'll do is I'll quickly open a Cisco packet tracer. So I've already downloaded Cisco packet tracer and installed it. I've also made a video, separate video on this. Okay, so do watch that video also if you have not installed or downloaded Cisco packet tracer. So what I need to do is I need to pick up a switch over here. So here you can see at the bottom, here are the routers, and these are the switches options. So I have a lot of options for the switches also. So I'll take the very first option, that is 2960. Now I'll just double click on that icon on the switch and go into this CLI. Okay, now you can see that the switch is booting up with that OS. Now currently you can see the host name of the switch is by default, which is a switch, and the switch is in the user mode, you can see. Okay, so this is in the user mode, and now I need to change the host name of the switch. So if you want to change anything on that switch, it's a changes which are related to the configuration changes of the switch, you need to enter into something known as global configuration mode. Now you are in a user mode. Now, to enter from the user mode into the global configuration mode, you need to first go into the privilege mode, and then from privilege mode you can go into the global configuration mode. So from user mode, the privilege mode, the command is enable, and now I'm into the privilege mode. So now from this privilege mode I need to go into the global configuration mode, because in privilege mode I cannot make any configurational changes on the switch. I can only read certain what you can say output of certain commands from the switch. Okay, so I'll go into the global configuration mode. The command is very simple: configure terminal, or simply conft you can type. So I'm into the global configuration mode. Now I want to change the host name of the switch. What host name I need is this, that is SW1. So just copy this host name, and the command to change the host name is simple: host name. Okay, now you see here the host name by default is switch. Now I want it to be SW1, so I'll paste it. Now you can see once I press the enter, the host name of the switch will change. It is changed. So this is how you can change the host name of the switch. Now to exit from the global configuration mode, the command is exit. Now I'm in the privilege mode. Now from exiting from the privilege mode is also the command is same, that is exit. Okay, now the second thing I want to do is set a message of the day, that is MOTD, banner of the switch. So I'll show you how it looks basically. So this is the banner of the switch. So I'll just copy this banner first of all, or the message of the day. So this is what I've copied, the banner. Now to make the changes, I need to go into global configuration mode. As I told, I can just type conf t. And the command to set the banner is banner. Okay, I need to set the message of the day now. So if you see, I have an option of, now if I give a question mark, I'll the prompt will show me the all possible options. So here it is showing me only one possible option, that is MOTD, that is message of the day. Again I give a question mark. Okay, so it is saying that I have to give a certain line and C banner text C, that is C, then a banner text, whatever banner I keep, and then C, where C is a delimiting character. I can keep any character as a delimiting character. Okay, my favorite one is dollar, so I'll keep it as a dollar. Okay, so what I need to give is dollar, the banner text, then again the dollar. Okay, now it is telling me enter the text and end with the character dollar. Okay, so I'll just paste it. Okay, so this is the banner or the message of the day I want to set, and then I need to give again the dollar, and I'll press enter. Okay, now where can I see the message of the day? So whenever a user, okay, trying to log in into that switch, you will get the message of the day. So this is the message of the day. Only authorized users are allowed, unauthorized users are not allowed. So this kind of messages normally you can keep on the production switches, which are live in the network. Normally you'll see such kind of banners set up on the switch. Again, the last thing is related to passwords. Okay, this is again a very important thing. Configure a line console password. So they want me to configure a line console password as India@123. So line console password, so you can check it whether any line console password is configured. It is not configured, since when we're trying to log into switch, it is not asking for any password as such. So you can see over here under this line console 0, you won't find any configuration over here in this one. Okay, there's no configuration over here. So I want to make the changes, the configuration changes under line console 0. So what I need to go is, I need to go into the global configuration mode. In the global configuration mode, I need to go into line console mode. So I'll type here line console 0. Okay, and then I'll set the password. Okay, so I'll just type a password and the password whichever I want to give. So I'll just paste that password, that is India@123. Now since I'm setting a password, I also need to give an extra command, that is login. Okay, now I'll exit from here. Okay, now once I've exited from this mode, you can see this config line. I came back to the global configuration mode. Now the another thing I need to set here is the enable secret password. This is a very important stuff, guys. You must know this. Enable secret password. How to set a enable secret password for router or switch. For both of them, the command is same. In the global configuration mode, you need to go into this, to type this command, enable secret and the password. So the password here is something different, I think so. The password here is, need to set is Cisco@123. So I'll keep this password as Cisco@123. Just paste it here. Okay, and press enter. So this is how I've configured enable secret password also. Now I'll exit from the switch. Okay, now once I press enter, you will see only authorized user allowed. This is the banner which we set. Then it is asking me the password. This is the console, because I'm trying to log in via console, so it is asking me the console password. So this is our console password, this India@123. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. Okay, so now here's the host name which we configured, that is switch 1. Now I'll go into the, I want to go into the privilege mode. So I need a password which I've set, that is enable secret password. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this password and paste it over here. Okay, so this is how we have done all the, we have configured everything which was required. So guys, in this way, there are a lot of stuff which I can come up with more videos, but in this video I'll stop here, because I want to show you only this much, the basic configuration of the switch. It's very important to actually configure a switch, to know the basic configuration of switch whenever you are starting your career in networking. So I'll give you a last command. Now whatever changes we have made this changes in the running configuration, not in the startup configuration. Okay, if you want to check, for example, like this one. Okay, so we have made the changes in the running configuration, not in the startup configuration. So we need to copy the running configuration into the startup configuration. Now even if the switch get reloads, and if you have not saved the running configuration into the startup configuration, then you will lose the configuration. Okay, so the command to save the running configuration to startup configuration is copy run startup config. So you won't lose the configuration even if the switch gets restart or rebooted. Okay, so I've stopped here in this video. I'll catch up you in the next video. If you really like this videos, guys, please do give appropriate comment to this video, and please do share this video with your friends, so it will be useful for your friends as well. So I'll stop here. and catch up in the next video. Till then, bye, thanks, and take care.
In this demonstration, we're going to look at configuring an enterprise wireless network. Now, the process for configuring an enterprise wireless network is very different than the process you would use to configure a home or small office wireless network. When you're configuring a home or small office wireless network, you're typically configuring a single access point. That's not the case with an enterprise wireless network. In an enterprise wireless network, we usually have lots of different access points to provide wireless coverage. And instead of configuring each individual access point, we instead configure a wireless controller, which then manages all the access points in the wireless network. And that's what we're going to do here. Now, be aware before we get going that there's no way we can possibly cover the configuration steps for all the different wireless networking vendors. We've picked one here that we're going to work with, but the general concepts that we're going to use to configure this wireless network will transfer fairly well to other vendors' equipment. So the first thing I need to do is to log into my wireless controller's management interface, and I've already done that here. And then the next thing we need to do is connect one or more access points to this controller so we can begin managing that access point. And I've already done that here. In fact, if we come over here to the Configure tab and go to Access Points, we should see that there is an access point that has been connected and recognized by the controller, and it's ready for configuration. So in order to do this, we need to define a wireless LAN, we need to define a wireless LAN group, and then we need to associate that wireless LAN group with the access point that we just connected. So let's do the first task, configuring a wireless LAN. Now the wireless LAN is kind of cool because what it allows us to do is define multiple configurations for different wireless networks using the same wireless equipment. For example, we could use the same wireless equipment to create a guest network that, say, vendors who are visiting our company can use to provide a basic level of internet access while shielding them from our internal network. And we can also create a separate internal wireless network that only employees are allowed to use that has access to our internal company data. We can do that all with the same networking equipment. So let's do that here. Let's first define a wireless LAN. So I come down here to Create New. So the first thing we need to do is create a name and an ESSID for the wireless network. Let's use CorpNet Wireless 1 for both values here. And then we'll provide a description. CorpNet Internal Wireless Network. Now we have to specify what kind of wireless network we're creating down here under type. We can create just a standard wireless network, a guest wireless network, and so on. For our purposes, we're just going to create a standard wireless network that our internal users are going to use to access both our internal network as well as the internet. So the next thing we need to do is come down here under authentication options and configure how we're going to authenticate systems when they connect to the wireless network. We have 4 different options. We have open, which basically just allows any workstation to try to associate with the wireless network. Or we could alternatively configure some type of authentication. We can select 802.1xe. We can use the MAC address to authenticate the workstation, or we could use a combination of both. Now, for our purposes, we're just going to leave this set to open. With this set to open, we're basically going to allow any workstation to connect to this wireless network, but they still have to have the appropriate passphrase defined down here under encryption methods. Now, by default, this is set to none. This is a very bad idea. This would transmit all of the data on the wireless network without any encryption, which would expose it to anybody who's running a wireless sniffer. We need to change that, so we want to use the strongest wireless encryption we possibly can use, which today is WPA2. Don't even think about using WEP, and I would think very strongly before I would implement WPA. These 3 options right here have been cracked, and they can be cracked fairly easily. WPA2, on the other hand, is a little bit stronger. If somebody wants to crack the encryption on our wireless network that's using WPA2, they're going to have quite a task ahead of them. It's not impossible, but it's much, much more difficult. Now we have to specify which encryption algorithm we want to use with WPA2. We can either use AES or TKIP and AES. Let's just go ahead and leave it at AES. And now let's enter in a passphrase that we're going to use for our wireless network. Now, because we're using WPA2 with a passphrase, we're essentially using a pre-shared key, meaning that anyone who wants to connect to our wireless network is going to have to know what that passphrase is in order to connect their workstation to the wireless network. So at this point, we have the basic settings that we need to create our wireless LAN. So we'll go ahead and click OK to create it. And we should see it now under our list of wireless LANs. Now, the next thing we need to do is create a wireless LAN group and then assign this network that we just created to that wireless LAN group. Now, with this particular device, a WLAN group is already created for you by default, and its name is default. And anytime you create a wireless network up here, it automatically becomes a member of that group. Now, we're not stuck with that. If we wanted to, we could create a new one. Let's create a new group, and let's call this internal wireless. For a description, we'll enter CorpNet, internal wireless network. Now we have to specify which wireless networks we've created that will be members of this same wireless LAN group. We only have one, so we'll just mark the one we just created and click OK. So now we have two different wireless LAN groups, but we've specified that the wireless LAN that we created is a member of the internal wireless LAN group. Okay, so at this point, we're almost there. We've created our wireless LAN, we've created our wireless LAN group. Now we have to go and associate that access point that we just connected with a wireless LAN group. So let's go over to access points. We'll locate the access point that we want to assign to a particular wireless LAN group. Now, in this case, we only have one access point currently connected, so it's rather easy to know which one we're supposed to use. We would just click Edit right here. In a real deployment, you would probably have 20 or more different access points all listed here, and so you'd have to know which one is which based upon your network map. We'll go ahead and click Edit, and we'll use the default device name. And we'll leave all these values set the way they are. What we want to do is come down here and specify which wireless LAN group we want to use for our 2.4 gigahertz radio and for our 5 gigahertz radio. So if we come over here, we can mark wireless LAN group and then select the group that we just created from the drop-down list. Let's do the same thing over here. Internal wireless. Click OK. And at this point, we are now members of the internal wireless group. And now, when a user wants to connect to this wireless network, they'll have to know the various security settings we defined over here for our wireless LAN named CN Wireless 1, because it's a member of the internal wireless WLAN group. That's it for this demonstration. In this demo, we talked about how to configure an enterprise wireless network. We first looked at defining a wireless LAN. We then made that wireless LAN a member of a wireless LAN group. And then we ended this demonstration by associating a particular access point on this wireless controller with the wireless LAN group that we just defined.
In this demo, we'll discuss configuring basic device settings for Cisco switches and routers. In this demo, we will configure basic device settings for a Cisco switch. We'll use a 24-port switch for this demo. We'll go over several commands that you might know, such as line commands, port commands, interface commands, host name, and synchronous logging. We'll look at basic settings that you'll use almost every time you get into a Cisco switch or a Cisco router. We're at the prompt on our switch. We're in user mode or perhaps guest mode. You don't have very many rights here. You don't have very many permissions. There aren't many things you can do from this prompt. We need to get into enable mode or privileged exec mode. We'll type the command enable and press enter. Notice the prompt has changed. We'll move it up here a little bit for you. Now we have the hashtag. We don't have the greater than symbol after the word switch, which by the way is our host name. We're going to change that here in just a second. But first, let's pay attention to the prompts. The prompts tell you, as the network administrator, what you can and cannot do with this switch. In privileged mode, there's not many things you can do except to run the show commands. You can restart or reload the device from here, and you can save the config. We'll see that here in just a little bit as well. There's not really a lot of administrative tasks that you can do here. What we want to do is to get into global configuration mode, or config T, which is simply what we're going to enter, config T. You can see that it gets us to global configuration mode. Now, pay attention to the prompt again because it has changed. We have the host name and we have the word config right after that in parentheses. We can type configure terminal, which is what config T is short for, and still get the same prompt. But you have to think of this as being administrative mode for your device. You can do a lot of good things in this mode, but you can also do a lot of bad things. The first thing we're going to do is change the host name. Right now, it's named Switch. That name doesn't really give you a lot of insight into the device other than you can probably assume that it's a switch. It could be a switch in network closet 1 or in another region or district. We typically change the host names to match whatever naming convention we have in our infrastructure. We'll just call this switch A. We'll use the keyword host name. We're typing the host name here, and we'll type switch A and press enter. Now, look at the prompt as soon as we press enter. Here, it changes. Over on the left side, instead of switch, it says switch A. We could have changed that to whatever we wanted. If we wanted to type hostname Apple and press enter, then this switch is named Apple. That doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll keep it something that makes a little more sense. We'll change it back to switch A. The prompt changed as soon as I pressed the enter key. Another mode we need to talk about is line mode. Lines define the type of connection you have into the Cisco devices. In this case, we're on a switch and we have a console connection. We're virtually connected from the console into this switch. When we do that, we're considered to be at line 0 or line console 0. Now, if we had remote connections into the device, such as through Telnet or Secure Shell, those lines would be virtual lines, or what we call VTY connections. Let's get into line mode. As we said, we are on the console port. All we have to do from global config mode is indicate line console 0. Let's type that out as line console 0 and press enter. Again, notice the prompt is changed. Now it says you're configuring a line. We're configuring line console 0 in this case. Now we can set a password for the console line if we wanted to, or we can type something else. We call this a sanity check, but the command line is called logging synchronous. The reason we call this a sanity check is it's not something you have to do. It doesn't make the switch or the router or the device run better. It's for you. As we configure our devices, we won't see much pop up on here because we have only one switch. But if you're connected to multiple devices, you may get console messages popping up on the screen. When that happens, sometimes it makes your text show up on one line, and then as you start typing, you're on a completely different line. It makes things just a little confusing. What we can do is use a command called logging synchronous. We'll type logging sync and then press the tab key. You'll notice that it completes the command. Let's press enter. Now, when we get a console message pop up on the screen, the commands stay down at the bottom. Another line that we need to show is called the VTY line. Now we're in the console line, as you can see. We typed that right here, so everything that we do underneath it is affecting that line. This logging synchronous is everything that comes to the screen where we use remote connections, VTY lines. Let's type line VTY. We're going to type 0, 15, because we know there are virtual lines 0 through 15 or 16 lines into this switch. That means 16 concurrent connections can be connected to this switch remotely. Most of the time, you'll take that down for security purposes, but for demo purposes, this works great. Press enter. Now we're configuring the line VTY, but you must watch carefully because the prompt didn't change, did it? The screen says we're still configuring a line. If you didn't pay attention to this line right here, we said line VTY, you may think we are configuring the console line, but we're not. We are in the VTY line. So again, from here, the best thing to do would be to set a password. You have to have a password set in order to make those remote connections so you can get the information from that device. That's our VTY right there. let's talk about Message of the Day, or MOTD. The MOTD allows you to give a message to whoever is logging onto that device at any given time. Let's get into Global Config right now. We're in Line Config, so we're going to go back a level. We'll press Ctrl-C on the keyboard. That takes us back to Privileged Exec mode. Notice the prompt changes. If we wanted to get into Global Config, the command is config-t. That gets us back into Global Config. Now we can type the MOTD. This is a banner, so we type banner ? The question mark, by the way, is going to be a lifesaver. We'll talk about that throughout this entire course. It allows you to get help if you need it. Normally, the help gives you very good insight to what you're allowed to type in the command. It usually doesn't give you something that you can't type at the prompt, unless it's relevant. So here, the only thing we can do is set the MOTD or Message of the Day banner. Let's type MOTD ? It tells us to type the delimiting character. The delimiting character indicates the end of the message. We're not going to use the letter C because we might use that letter in our message. In that case, as soon as the router sees the letter C in the message, it thinks that's the end, and we don't want that. We'll use the # or hashtag. Now it prompts us to enter the text message. It reminds us to end with the character we specified as the delimiter. Let's type, "Here's my banner," # or hashtag. Press enter and you can see the message of the day has been set and saved. Now whenever someone logs into this device, it should pop up this banner. Let's test this. Let's restart the switch. Alright, so we typed our message of the day. Let's see what we've done. The switch has restarted and it's back to the beginning. We are prompted to press return to get started. Let's press enter and see what happens. And there's the banner. That's what we typed earlier with the hashtag delimiter at the end. That should show up every time anyone logs in. Lastly, let's talk about an exec timeout. This is just like any other timeout. Imagine you're doing some online shopping or online banking. You get up and walk away for a little bit, you come back, and it says you've been logged out due to inactivity. The same thing can happen with a switch or a router. For security purposes, a router or switch has a 5-minute default on timing out a user. Let's see how we can set that. Maybe we want to set it to 10 or 15 minutes. We'll see what command we use in Global Config. Remember, we're in user exec mode right now. We'll type enable to get to privileged exec or enable mode. We need to keep going, so we'll type conf-t to get to global configuration mode. Then we'll type line con 0 for line console 0, so we can configure that line. Now we use an exec timeout command to change that time on this line. Let's type exec timeout. We should press the tab key to complete that command. We can type a question mark after the exec timeout, and it says, "Hey, what do you want?" We want the timeout in minutes. As we said, the default is 5. Let's set this to 10 by typing 10 and press enter. That's it. That's all we have to do. Now the timeout is 10 minutes compared to 5 minutes. If we sit here for 10 minutes, it will time out compared to the 5 minutes that was the default. Remember, we want to make all these changes permanent. We want to make the running config the startup config. We do that with a privileged exec mode command. Let's go back a level. We'll type exit and press enter to get to the global config. Then we'll type exit and press enter again to get to privileged exec mode. Now, we'll use the copy command. We'll type copy running config, startup config. Once again, we'll use the tab key to autocomplete that command. This says we want to take what's on the screen, what we've been doing, and copy that to the startup config file. We'll press enter. It asks, "Hey, what do you want the file name to be?" Anything in the square brackets right here, see these square brackets around startup config? That is going to be the default answer. You want it to be named startup config because that's what the switch is looking for in NVRAM during the boot up process. Let's leave that destination file name the way it is and press enter. It says, "Okay," and now we're all done. That's it for this demo. In this demo, we went over basic settings. We practiced working with global configuration settings, privileged exec, line console, logging synchronous, and finished with exec timeouts.